In this video, we're going to show you how to install pads and rotors on your Nissan Quest located behind your rear wheels. Using a 21mm socket, loosen and remove your lug nuts. With the lug nuts removed, loosen and remove the wheel, set it aside. In order to remove our brake caliper, we need to remove our 14mm slider pin bolts. On the bottom here, we're going to use our gear wrench. So just going to leave that in there. And you can see as we go to pull this out, it hits the lower control arm. So just going to set that in there for now. The next thing we want to do is remove the brake caliper bracket, which is this large bolt up here, and there's one down below. And we have this bolt here, this is a 19mm. Go ahead and loosen this. Remove the upper bolt. Now the bottom bolt itself has a limited amount of space here, so we want to go ahead and use a box wrench on the bottom to loosen that one. We want to continue to loosen this bolt until we can pull it out. All right, so we have our lower bolt out. We did spray it down with some rust penetrant to help us release that. You want to grab a caliper tool, usually shaped like this here, or you can use a anchoring strap. What you want to do is slide this off. We're going to remove our slide pins. As we remove these here, I want to pay attention to them. The upper slide pin on our caliper has the rubber sleeve on the end of it, where the lower one is a solid steel pin. Remove the caliper bracket with the pads. Set that bracket aside. Use our tool here to go ahead and anchor this. The reason why we use that is we don't want the caliper to be pulling on our flex hose, so go ahead and just support that up and out of the way. Go ahead and grab that brake rotor and wiggle that off. Let's go ahead and clean our hub face. You want to make sure that there's no rust buildup around the flange at all. We're now going to apply some anti-seize compound to the hub face. Go ahead and take your brake rotor, slide that on. You can use a pick or a screwdriver, just pry that out. Line that up, insert that into your rotor. You can use this hole as an access to the adjuster to do some fine tuning if it need be. Take your caliper, remove the brake pads. Grab the sliders. I'm going to set those aside. You want to go ahead and remove the rubber boots here. Just grab those and twist them off. When you pull these off, you want to pinch and roll and inspect these rubber boots for any tears or splits. If they are damaged anyway, you need to replace them at this time. Ours are in good shape. We're going to reuse those. Now we have the stripped caliper bracket. Using your bristle brush, start to scrub up where the sliders went, cleaning up any debris. Inspect it for any built-up rust where the sliders go. If there is built-up rust, it's okay to use a flat file to go ahead and clean up that surface. You want to make sure that the new sliders fit in there nice and smoothly without any raised spots causing resistance for the brake pads. Use some spray solvent. Everything looks good there. Our next spot we're going to work on are where these slide pins go. And take some of the spray solvent, put some in the hole. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when doing this. Recommended to wear safety gloves as well. Use a bore brush. Run that in and out a few times. And what we're doing is cleaning out any of the old grease. Repeat for the other slider. Go ahead and use your bristle brush and clean up around the port where the rubber boot is to go. Go ahead and do one spray last cleaning here. Before we install our new sliders, you do want to inspect the kit. The kit comes with 2 different sizes, so make sure you match up the one that is for your vehicle. Ours, on our particular SV model, has the wider gap there. So simply take the narrow ones, dispose of those. Take some grease and put a little bit where the sliders should go. You don't want globs of grease on there. So go ahead and use your finger, smear that, make sure it's evenly spread on there. Line this up, push it down and on. Make sure it is flush. Inspect it, everything looks good, and do the same for the other side. Take a little bit of grease, you put it around or just inside the port. Grab your slide pins, and we want to go ahead and clean these. Inspect the slide pins for any rust or scaly debris on here. If it is, you need to run it through the wire wheel machine, clean it up the best you can, or even replace the pins depending on how bad it is. Repeat for the other one. For this particular pin, you need to inspect that rubber seal, make sure that it's not swollen or torn. Ours is in good shape, so we can reuse that. Before installing these here on our assembly, thin coat of grease. And set those aside. Back to the caliper bracket. Go ahead and grab those rubber boots. Inspect on the inside. Ours are in good shape. Go ahead and pop these back on to our bracket. Our bracket and slide pins are now ready for installation. Our next step is to compress our piston back into the caliper itself. Now you can put in the old brake pad and use a C-clamp on here to compress it, or you can use the proper tool to go ahead and move that in. Now I'm pushing this in. It's going to be a slow process, just moving the piston into it. Our goal is to get that piston flush with the cup. Then we can release this. You can see how there's much more clearance here. I'm going to take our brake pad and install it on the inboard section here. Now our inboard pad has a squeak tab and it's on the bottom. Install our outer pad. The pin with the rubber sleeve goes in the top. I'm going to feed that through into the rubber boot. And get that pin started. Just thread in a couple threads, and we'll go ahead and install the lower pin. Take our inboard pad, install that with the squeak tab on the bottom. Install the outboard pad. Slide this over. Now we can go ahead and start to install our caliper bracket bolts. Let's go ahead and tighten down our caliper bracket bolts. Once we get this one bottomed out, we'll go ahead and proceed to the bottom. Now that we have the caliper bracket bolts snug down, let's go ahead and tighten down the caliper bolts. Torque our caliper to bracket bolt to 32 foot-pounds. On the lower one, we're going to use a crow's foot. Torque the caliper bracket to knuckle bolts to 62 foot-pounds. The bottom one, we're going to use a crow's foot style on our torque wrench to gain access to it. Now once you've completed this here, you want to hop into the vehicle, pump up the brakes, make sure that that caliper compresses. Now that you've done this side here, go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. When you're done with that, go ahead and get into the vehicle, pump up that brake pedal 3 to 4 times to compress the piston and take up that gap between the pads and the rotor. Go ahead and install your wheel. You want to go ahead and start all of your lug nuts by hand. That'll prevent cross-threading of the studs. Once you have them all started, go ahead and snug them down. Ideally, you want to do this in a crisscross pattern. Go ahead and torque down your lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. We're going to do this in a crisscross pattern. At that point there, you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.